Hey, so I'm going to try a little bit of a thing here. I have a melody that I want to put a bass groove under. Basically, I came up with this melody a little bit ago, and it's about time to develop it out. It's something I called Human Element, a name that sat right with me. So I wanted to take that and kind of develop that out into an actual drop, which is, I think for me, the next part of making this into a real track, right? So I have just the breakdown, just the melody in there right now, and taking that and turning that into the next step is my goal here. So I'm gonna just walk through that, and hopefully we'll be successful. We'll try this over the next few minutes. So let me play what I have first, and then we'll start from there. So just a few elements right now. It's got this plucky melody that's super emotive that I'm totally into that sort of thing, of course. And it's got a pad and then a pad bass. So it's not anything super complex. It's just basically the melody, some effects just for the hell of it, basically, right? So let me come in and start to do some stuff for getting this into not just being a loop of the melody and being something more interesting. So how do we turn this into a song? What we're going to do today is we're just basically going to go through how would I make the drop section of this, because that's the obvious next step is, will this work with the groove, and what kind of groove will it work with for a giant trance song, which it obviously is. So let's go and kind of look at this a little bit. Let's see. First thing I want to do is pick a kick of some sort, and we can change it later. I'm going to take a copy of the melody, put it over here just so we can listen to it. Okay, cool. So right now I have an instance of kick 3 in, but I don't want to actually use that. I want to use a sample-based kick just to start off with. This is a really good way to get some rubber under the road really fast. So let me look for the sampler, so multi-sample in Logic. Let's see, and I have some saved banks of Dave Parkinson Trance Essentials kicks, which, you know, obviously I'm not going to win any wars for originality with those ones, but they will do the job and they do it well, so it's a good starting place if nothing else. So let's find... It's kind of nice and thunky. Let's give that a shot. So I'm just pressing on keys on the keyboard that trigger the sample from the sampler bank, which is super useful actually, because then, because this is set up as a multi-sample with mappings to the different samples, it allows you to actually audition a bunch of kicks really, really easily, and it's something that I use all the time. So let's just enter this in. Obviously my playing is offbeat, but it doesn't matter since we are going to use the power of MIDI to make this useful. So I'll just move it up all the way. I want to make the sample links, let me just put them to the end of the bar here. Back them up a second. Sweet. So now we have a kick in place. Let me just listen to this melody over the kick and just see what kind of a bassline rhythm we want to have. So it's kind of got this like da-ga, 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 da-ga going on, and I kind of think that that has a thing going on that we don't want to lose when we get the groove, right? We don't want to just be regular 16th notes and not have that syncopation, that rhythm. So we could have dung, dicka, dung, dicka, dung, dicka, dung, sort of like something like that is off kilter a little bit. We want some variety of rhythmic elements. So I'm going to choose just a sound. Let's see what we have for mid-bass elements to start off with. I guess I'll open Spire and let's see, what am I feeling? I think maybe I could just try some random plucks to see what might work. So that's kind of an FM sort of sounding sound. It says first test. I have no idea what they mean by that, but kind of get like an electric bass sound with that. So that's interesting. We could maybe help us find a rhythm, and then we can kind of play with some other sounds to see if something else would work for that. But it's worth putting in. Random first luck in that it's got that sort of FM snap though. So bom, bom, bonk, bom, bom, bonk. Maybe a thing that works for rhythm. Let's try it. And these are not even. I'm just going to loop the first bar that's on the root of this because I don't want to like mess with a bunch of rhythms and have the melody changing at the same time. And let me just confirm that I'm on the right bass note. I'm going to drag my pad bass over here, and if I raise this up, okay, cool. Just want to make sure that we're starting the root note. So it's kind of cool. I'm not sure if I'm whole sold in the sound, but let's give it a shot. So bump, 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 bump. It's not bad as a kind of a rhythm. I feel like I should go bump, 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 ba-dum, bump, bump, ba-dum, bump, sort of like that though. It almost needs like another hit. So let me put... Try this. So it's got that bump, 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 ba-dum, bump, bump. Let's see, by changing that to match the bass notes, to see if that actually will groove right with the rest of the bass line. Then we can go over and pick some sounds. So let me go, and what I'm going to do is I can see that each of these are a whole 2 bars per bass note. So I'm going to join these together, lay them all out, and then I will match them to our pad bass here that is already existing. Let me zoom. My pad bass has a lot of different, it's not all the same velocity. That's not amazing. But what I want to do is actually make this a different color so we can see it easier. So if we now lay these out together, oops, there we go. And now let me zoom, ahaha. But if we look at these together, we can see that they're different colors, which will make this much easier to do. I'm gonna take my pad bass down so it's in the same octave. Okay, which obviously would sound like ass, but we don't have to care about that. We're just using it as a guide. Just match the, I'm gonna save this off in case we need it as a guide, but we just match the chords here. So I'm gonna join these together in one region for convenience. So it plays pretty nice. I think I would want to go up an octave with this. It sounds a little weird here. And in second thought, I'm actually kind of liking this sound. It's not bad. That FM snap is pretty nice to have in there. Naoki and I did something for Nagisa that was a little bit like that in the bass line. Had some FM stuff, and I like that generally. I think we'll want to layer it with some more stuff to give it some more groove though, of course, right? Because it's very lonely right now. Okay. So that's a good kind of donkey thing to have in there. Now I'm going to high pass this a little bit because we are going to put some subs and stuff underneath it, and I don't want to have it interfering. I may have to adjust that later. This is just for now. So let me get another bass on here. I kind of want something that's a little more traditional, like arpy, sort of like ducka 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 ducka, or like 16th notes, something around there, just to give it the roll at the same time. Because you want it to have syncopation and roll, kind of. So let's go for, I'm going to try, there's some good ones in Zebra too. I'm going to go for a preset that I know this time, because this is, want this to be a little bit more standard. One called Japanese Schoolgirls that is obviously named after the Anjuna tune, Japanese Schoolgirls, but it doesn't sound like Japanese Schoolgirls to me. Okay, let's go put it back to one measure, and let's get just a rolling line we can get out of here. What octave are we in? So we're going to be playing... Okay, so we want the F. Maybe I want it to do something like... Maybe something like that. Let's try that, and then we'll see if it works. So that's obviously terribly played, but that's fine, because through the magic of MIDI, we're going to make it work. So I want it to go bop, 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 in terms of octaves. Let's get the velocities right after this. So this will be 1 bar. Let's work on 1 bar at a time. Let's make this loop so So let me make these, I'm going to make them all the same velocity, and we can choose to accentuate something later if we desire. So let's let us also high pass this. I am going to take this down in volume. Just to blend these together with my other bass that I have here a little better, because I want that plucky one, the FM thing, to stand out a little bit more. I want it to be punchy and kind of in your face a little bit. So that's the combination of these, I think, is what's going to make this work. So we have 2 bars of this. Okay, cool. Sounds pretty decent so far. Let me just make this into one larger region, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing for adapting it to the chord progression that we did before, although there will be a decision to make about what octave to put this in. So I'm going to use the pad bass as a guide again. Looks like this is kind of situated in a different octave range, so I'm going to move this up to match this. Let's try taking it down first and we'll see. So that should be matching the chords. Let's give it a listen all the way through. Okay, yeah, and before we listen all the way through, that's definitely in the wrong octave. Going down there isn't really gonna work. Okay, so now we have 2 mid-bass layers, and I think that they're doing the core things that they need to do. They need some sidechain and stuff like that to give them a little bounce. But, you know, details, details. Let's get a sub in here. So let's mute some of the other layers so we can actually hear what we're doing for a second here. The sub bass will be much more straightforward, I think. I'm going to use something pretty simple to do it. Got anything. I have some subs in a pack I'm putting together here. So let's grab a sub sound from here. So let me see, sub bonk. Match all the velocities, because we definitely want them to be matched. Kind of a nice attack on that sub. Now that we have that, let's try it with the bass lines to see how it sits. Yeah, seems cool. I kind of like it with the offbeat thing. Let's see what would happen if instead of doing offbeat, we did like a little bit more of a rolling sub. So we're gonna come in here and make this rolling. So I'm gonna make this ever so slightly less than 1/16 note. We're probably gonna wanna take this one down because it'll interfere with the kick. I kind of feel like all the motion's coming from the upper bass, so I don't think we're going to get much out of that this time. So let's go back. We are going to do the regular sub bass, just a regular offbeat, good old classic offbeat sub. Sweet. Okay, let's copy that over and we will match it to the pad bass just like we did with the other basses. Again, matching the octave of this stuff. We'll try that thing again to see which octave it needs to sit in. Sweet. Okay, so that's sounding actually pretty good, and I like that lower octave better on this sub than I do on the other things. I'm just going to call this sub so we know what these layers are. Name as you go along. Let's see, this is the rolling mid bass, and this is going to be our pluck mid bass. So let's put those together, see how they sound with the melody and everything that we have. Sweet. And I put the filter up there just so we could get a little bit more oomph from the synth. So we want to know what it's going to sound like when it's big, right? Okay, next let's get some percussion of any sort in here, because right now we have nothing. So I want to pick, I'm going to start off with an open hat, which we absolutely will need to have for a good trance song. Going to use the same sort of thing where I have multi-samples of Dave Parkinson's samples. I use those a lot. I do use other samples too, but I feel like these are definitely some go-tos, at least for getting things going. And then you can always like edit later and get like more different vibes going on if you so desire. So okay, let's preview these. These are in the same thing. I'm just going to press some keys. Let's try that one. It's nice and sharp, nice and stompy. We'll put that one in and we'll move it around and see what we think. Okay, 4 badly timed hi-hats. Edit and get them into order. These ones don't need a lot of velocity because this is the open hat. I'm just going to put this across and we can play with it. Okay, so now let's try a few other hats. I'm going to move these notes up and down and see what I can get to. Kind of like that one actually. It's very classic, does the job pretty well. We're gonna name this open hat, and then let's go on to getting a clap. Seems like the thing to do. We can always change all these elements, so I'm gonna put them in pretty fast. I don't know, that sounds cool. We'll put it in, we'll try other things. Yeah, that's not the one. That is way too like ticky. Sounds pretty good as far as the length of the actual clap, so I think let's go with that for now, and we can kind of figure out where we want to get to. So let's get in a couple more elements. We're getting there. Okay, let's get some closed hats in here. Something I do like to do, sometimes I'll program them by hand. A lot of times I will try to, this will be where I'll try to layer some loops of some sort. Let's see what we can have for a loop that I can pull into the quick sampler. I love using this thing. Kind of a nice ticky open hat sort of thing. It's at 140, but when we load into this thing, we can slice it up, which will make it really easy to use. So I'm going to slice that. I'm going to copy the MIDI pattern, and I'll paste it in place. And then we have this MIDI region here. Extend it out. Let me mute the melody for a second so we can just hear this. I'm going to take out most of the elements except for this. Yeah, it just adds that little spice. It's actually pretty nice for what it's doing. Let's try a couple things with it to see if we can make it a little bit groovier here. It is already pretty snappy, but I'm going to try to reduce the sample length just to see if it's useful. Nah, I like it full length. I do like that though. So basically in this slicing sampler, you can take the pitch down here, and that sounds pretty nice to me. It smears things in kind of a nice way. Sweet. So, okay, we got this nice smeary sort of closed hat loop. Okay, basic. I want to like add a little bit of spice to the percussion section because obviously it's quite boring. You're not going to hear a lot of this in this section per se, but I kind of want something as an alternate element. So let's see what kind of interesting sounds we can pull up. This will take a couple minutes perhaps, so bear with me. I'm going to pull up another quick sampler because we're almost certainly going to want to warp this in some weird way. I have this really interesting drum and bass pack by Blue Mar 10. Drum loops. Those are really cool sounds. So I like kind of some of the movement and some of the interesting sounds in there. I don't think we're going to use this entire loop, but I think we can kind of resample it and play with it a little bit. So I'm going to copy the MIDI pattern for this. I'm going to try it as is because you never know, but I don't expect this to work. Because it's going to be like halftime and sounds really choppy and weird, right? and you can't even hear it. So let's play with some of these sounds instead. Because of this plugin, this is the yoga loop, I'm going to call it. Take off the mid bass and everything so we can just focus on the percussion for a second. Let's see. So because of this sampler, you can essentially just play all the samples in that sequence on the keyboard. Like, so if you just wanted to have like those hits, you could easily pull them out. Those are kind of the hits you want, I think. They're all kind of cool. I'm just going to play them and we'll stick them in places and see what feels right. That's obviously not right. It sounds way too tribal for a trance track, but let's play with it a little bit. Actually, I mean, rhythmically, it's kind of interesting. Will it work with our melody and our bass line? That's a different question. Let's just try the first couple notes of the melody. I think that like this sort of like this note is actually the main one that you want to emphasize, because it kind of offsets the melody in a kind of an interesting way. You can barely hear it though, so I am going to turn it up a little bit. Still a little low. Let's turn it up some more. Boop. Oh, you are up all the way. That's because we're feeding the limiter pretty hard, but that's actually something I do a lot when I'm just trying to make something together. I'll do better mixing later, but I don't think this is the time for it, to be honest. So I do like that. It's obviously... Oh, look at that low end. Jesus, that's not going to happen. That won't do. Let's see what we can do to make this sound interesting, and then we'll kind of go from there for how we can affect it. So I'm going to add a trash distortion just to see what we can get out of this loop. Let's turn off the other elements for space here. I'm going to turn off... Then let's see, we're getting a little clipping on the edge, so I'm going to take the release down on this. Kind of cool. I'm going to try to, like, I don't mind this current distortion we have. Here's without. And there it is with. It's kind of cool. Kind of like the way that rolls. Let's see if we can play with the filter here and get a little more interesting stuff. So sometimes with these kind of percussion things, bandpass filters can be awesome. Raise the resonance. It's kind of getting a little too gritty there for me. So a lot of those other notes there's too many notes in this for me. Like there's too many, like these almost have note values of their own. Let's see if we can just get this middle one. Because that's like the rhythmic counterpoint we wanted anyway, right? So some of these other things actually might work. Now they're a little more atonal. Let me try playing those in. Yeah. The cool thing about those is they're not ringing out as a note so much, so I'm going to delete these. It's a little too funky. Obviously that thunk is hitting a lot harder than the other ones, but I think that's actually kind of what we want. Let's try it with the mid bass. It's not coming out in terms of the high end enough, but I think in terms of rhythm, that's what we want. Let me turn this filter off for a second. We do want some kind of filtering on here. I think it's just gonna be a different part of the filter. Kind of like that, actually. Let me turn off the mid bass and we'll hear it just on its own. Okay, now let's give it a little bit of atmosphere. Let's see, I am going to use a timeless delay because it's my favorite delay of the moment. Let's turn off ping pong. Ping pong might be a bit too much. I've decided this is a little bit too bright though. So let's actually, we got the bandpass filter already doing one thing, but in addition to the bandpass filter, I'm actually going to filter it from above too a little bit. And I can just do this in EQ. Let's try adding back in the percussion. It's kind of cool. I like that. Don't know if it's going to be the final element, but you know, it's good enough to get us started and get us to the next stage. So put a Kickstarter on it to just make sure that it doesn't interfere with the main rhythm. Sweet, that sounds good. Let's put in all the other elements and let's see what it sounds like all together. Okay, so obviously there's some EQ things that need to happen on this and some bounce. I'm gonna group the mid basses. I do like the overall feel of where this is going right now though. So I am going to give another kickstart, which is, you can use LFO tool or side chaining of any sort really. But I wanna make sure this is actually keeping the mid basses out of the way of the kick. Sweet. Okay, that sounds cool. Let us get some pads in there too. I like what that's doing though. It's got the little bounce on the mid bass. Definitely in mixing, we're gonna have to bring out a lot more highs on these mid basses, but that's for a story for another day. So I'm gonna duplicate our pad that we have just to see if that works. I wanna add to this pad, and the reason that I'm duplicating it is so I can sidechain one copy of it. The version you want against the groove isn't always gonna be the same as the one you have in the breakdown as far as like EQ and processing and all that, so you kind of want to separate it out. So I am going to take this, make sure we're like high passing it. Yep, because it does have some lows in there too. Obviously that sidechain is super dramatic, so let's back that off a little bit, but let's see how this sounds over the groove. Sweet, okay, let's add the lead back in. Awesome. So let's get in there. I think that this is a good start to start building out the rest of the track, because we basically have a groove that will go from this to this. So awesome. Yeah, obviously, just to get this in, we're going to want to put like a big crash when it comes in and stuff like that, just to show that we are in the climax. But hey, we have the climax that's starting to take shape, and I think that's a good place to leave it for right now. Let me know if you like this. Leave me a comment or send me a DM or something like that. Let me know if you'd like to see more content like this, because I would love to share my process with you if you're into seeing it. So hopefully this was interesting and kind of showed a little bit about what my next step is after I have a melody. And yeah, I'll see you on the flip side. Cheers.